It's 2-5 at Ocean's 11, 300 to 800 buy-in.
2-5, 300 to 800. Ocean's 11. Is this outside?
Yeah.
Okay, so playing
Yeah, it's
outdoors
on Saturday.
on a Saturday. Okay.
It's been a good game so far. In this hand, it's 675 effective.
Okay.
Villain one, it was we went to post flop heads up. Villain one is guy just sat down, had an Eastern European accent, on the phone with somebody. Like it was kind of weird. He was on the phone with someone telling him it was a good game and he should come to the casino at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So immediate thoughts were like probably better than the average player pool, fairly aggressive. But we were 7-handed at the time. The tables play 8-handed, and we have one open seat.
Okay.
Which usually when I get to like 5 or 6, I might think about my range changing. I wasn't really thinking about it in this hand. I was still kind of viewing it as full ring. But it folded to him in the hijack.
Okay.
And he opened at 25, which he's new to the table, but that's a pretty standard, maybe a little bit big, but fairly standard raise for these stakes. Usually people open to 20 or 25.
Okay.
It folds to me in the big blind with King of Hearts, Queen of Clubs, and I called 25.
So he's in the hijack, sort of? Is that what you said? Okay, so open to 25 from the hijack.
Which is only like
right, 7-handed. Right. It's almost the effective under the gun. It's close. So you call in the big blind with king, queen off. I think that's pretty standard. I mean, just one thing. So is that the typical open size? Obviously, people that aren't accustomed to live poker, they're like, oh my God, 5X when I see these types of opens at 1-3 in Texas. But was that about the typical open size?
I would say 20 was probably typical, but for a new player sitting down, like it didn't strike me as odd. Like that's some people's typical open size. It's usually mine. You know, I usually open 25 and you still get action. So if you're used to playing in this game, it's not big, you know?
Okay. So let's go to the flop.
All right. Flop comes Queen of Diamonds, 4 of Spades, 3 of Diamonds.
Okay. So you flop top pair, 2 front door diamonds out there. Queen of Diamonds, 4 of Spades, 3 of Diamonds. By the way, for people, again, I don't know why I just laugh a little bit. For people that are like, why do you, oh, I forgot there we go. The logo's gone. For people that are like, why do you always repeat the board on these shows? Because people listen to this as a podcast. So Queen of Diamonds, 4 of Spades, 3 of Diamonds, and you've got King of Hearts, Queen of Clubs in the big blind. Okay. So you flop top pair.
Yep. So I check like inflow to him, the pre-flop raiser, and he bets 40. So pretty big bet.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, this is I would rarely raise top pair by itself in this game if I'm checking, just because it's usually so value heavy. But I didn't really think about raising because it's such a big bet anyway. So I just called here.
Yeah, I don't think that there's really anything to do really but call, especially against this sizing. I mean, the higher the top pair, the less your hand needs protection, but definitely against this sizing, I'm going to call for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I also noticed right off the bat, like outside, obviously the flush draw's there, but it's a pretty dry board, like Queen 3-4. You know, it's like one you hear as an example of a dry board almost.
Right.
So on to the turn?
Yep.
Okay, so pot's 126, and usually I have a really good cadence of checking my cards right as I act and then checking them right before the flop comes out, so I don't get in this situation. But in this case, I was thinking before the turn came out, like I was pretty sure I had the King of Hearts, but I wanted to make sure I didn't have the back door there. So I looked down at my hand and just glanced up and noticed him see me do that. You know, I didn't put huge amount of weight, but I did think about it later. He saw me check my card pursuits, and the turn comes 8 of Diamonds.
Okay, so front door diamonds come in.
Correct.
Okay.
I check again in flow, and he again goes almost full pot and bets 110.
So he bets 110. I mean, again, I think that you don't have any real decision here, but just call. It will be interesting to see what will come out, obviously, on the river here, but the fact that you've called and called has certainly shown, you know, some strength. The other thing too that's always interesting in these spots is you start thinking about how would you start playing small flushes here in this given situation. Would you ever, consider calling against these large bets? It's kind of a little bit of a catch-22 in live poker. Like if you want to keep balanced, right, you're supposed to do some just calling with some strong hands.
Yeah, against this villain for sure. Someone who I know is thinking about the hand, or
right.
I assume. I mean, it's a big assumption, but I am assuming that.
Right, but then on the flip side, you get live poker where people check backhands, they don't value bet, and then you lose out on the value. So it's a little, it's hard to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, and that's why I called in this hand because, I did kind of play my opponent here, and I'm so not used to a check call line, like going all the way. It's usually at some point I'll try to raise if I feel like I have the best hand and can get called by worse with a raise.
Well, I mean, here I don't think I'm going to be, your hand, it fits right into a check call, even if he's using regular sizing. Yeah. I'm talking about if you have a flush, you know what I mean? Or like a small set or something and the turn's like offsuit and he continues to fire. Like if you flopped a set of threes and the turn was an offsuit 8 and he was firing huge. But yeah, you call. So the pot's 346 and now let's see what the river is here.
Yeah, the river is the 6 of clubs. I check and flow again, and villain one over bets all in for 500.
So over the size of the pot.
500. Yeah, I saw it as 500. It ended up being about 520.
So 520.
Yeah.
Okay.
1.5 about.
So I mean, here's the thing with his sizing here. Basically, he's not, or he shouldn't ever be taken, say, like an overpair here, I don't think, for this sizing. Now, maybe you could say somebody could, but you just don't see it that much. Aces with the ace of diamonds. So he protects himself against, somebody sandbagging the nut flush and trying to get value from a queen. And I always talk about, at this level, even when they're not using this type of sizing, they get more polarized the more that they bet for 3 streets because everybody checks back one pair. But really here, I mean, if I'm in your opponent's spot, I mean, really the only... first of all, I would want to unblock a queen here if I'm going to take this sizing. Like, we wouldn't do this with, 3 queens. So, flushes, right, for value. Maybe, a set of 4s or 3s. It's just really strange to see that type of sizing with 8s on the flop. Could I see myself going here with, 4s or 3s here for a pot and a half bet? Possibly. But he's obviously representing better than one pair here for the most part. And I think from your perspective here, I mean, it's really, I can't necessarily tell you the answer. I think if you want to look at the composition of your hand, if you were going to flip a coin here, I mean, I can certainly say that this spot is underbluffed, obviously in live poker. But if you've got, a Euro hot shot that's, trying to play quote unquote GTO, I'm just saying that for satire purposes, you might want to consider calling down because he might be running like a bluff, with the stiff ace of diamonds. So the fact that if you had a diamond in your hand here, right? Like if you had the king of diamonds in your hand here, it would be better to call. You don't have a diamond in your hand. I realize the queen is out there, so you can't have the queen of diamonds. I'm just saying, if you were to ever say, I'm going to flip a coin, is there anything else about my hand that might give me just a little bit extra information if I'm neutral here? Well, you don't have a diamond. Maybe you fold. Maybe you call with the diamond. If I had no information in a typical 300 to 800, 2-5 game, I would say that this spot is vastly underbluffed. Now, if you've seen this guy do some wacky shit and he seems like he's polarized to you, yeah, maybe. But it's really hard to say. What did you end up doing?
Yeah, I ended up calling. My thought was I kind of went to MDF and was thinking okay, I didn't 3-bet. I would have 3-bet with any ace queen or king queen suited. So the only thing I could really have is sets here that I flopped, or like you said, queen jack with a jack of diamonds, queen 10 with a 10 of diamonds. Outside of that, I don't think I'm hanging on that long. And my thought was just I feel like it's someone willing that would be able to make an exploit. So I wanted to kind of think of MDF, and I didn't feel like I had the 30% bottom of my range just with set. And, I guess there were 4 queens out there. So I don't even know if my math was right, but it just felt like 2 little hands to be able to call down with if I just looked for the diamond there.
Well, so if you're talking about MDF, which is minimum for defense frequency. So if someone bets pot, so if someone bets pot, then they're risking, he's risking, say, 346 to win 346, which means you're supposed to call with the top 50% of hands you get here with that are sort of value, that have showdown value. When he bets pot and a half, I want to say it's probably 40% off the top of my head. If you bet 2x, you'd have to defend with 33%, right? So it would be about 40%.
Because I looked at it. Yeah.
So what was the result?
He ended up having ace of diamonds, 7 of hearts. I don't know if the straight blocker was relevant to him or not, but he did have and I told him before I called, I said, I think you have the ace of diamonds. I just don't know what the other card is. And, I was good, but like I said, I usually don't do a check call line, and I did because I thought this guy may be willing to bluff at the hand, but then felt like I may have got in over my head when he went for a pot and a half over bet on the river. I see that a lot.
Like I said, this is one that's, again, it's under bluffed in live poker. It's situational. I don't necessarily. Well, you keep saying I don't usually do a check call line. Like, what's wrong with the check call line here with King Queen?
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of my opponent more because you're right. I wouldn't raise with second kicker on that. It just I don't know. Maybe I was almost leveling myself, thinking of usually I just know where I'm at in a hand really well. I feel like the player pool is, you can see the guy who's going to call down. You can see the guy who is kind of a nit. You can see most of the table, and this guy I felt like was willing to exploit me, and I was just kind of. Well, no, I mean
that's obviously good. That's right. That's good that you use that information. But I just want to point out before we move on, though, is that in a single race pot and your heads up in the big blind, you should be doing a lot of check calling. You have a lot of hands that are going to want to take off, right, on flop and on turn. I mean, sure, you're going to throw in some check raises, but it's certainly not anything that's wild where you're going to get into a check call, that a check calling is necessarily bad. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.